Hello, everyone. If you were a friend of mine and you came over to my house and we were at the kitchen table and you had your Bible and I had my Bible and we had it open and we had a cup of coffee and we were just studying the Bible together and trying to learn what it tells us, and the doctrine of the Trinity come up, or the deity of Christ question, I would have to tell you something, because you're my friend. And I would have to tell you that I looked into these beliefs, the doctrine of the Trinity, and the associated beliefs that go along with it, and I found out they were false. And you might say something to me like, well, come on. We've got this big pile of evidence for the doctrine of the Trinity. We got all these verses, We've got Isaiah 9:6 and John 20:28 and John 1:1 and John 8:58, 2 Peter 1:1, Hebrews 1:8. We got all these verses. We've got all this evidence. How could you possibly say that Jesus isn't God or the doctrine of the Trinity isn't true? You might say something like that. And I would say, yeah, I know. I understand where you're coming from, because that's what I used to think. I used to think exactly the same thing. I used to think we had this big pile of evidence, and there's just no way this could be false. And after all, our scholars teach this too, right? And I would say, yeah, I understand. But then I would tell you, and I know it might even make you mad, might make you angry. I would tell you, you know what? I looked into this and I found out it's false. And then I would tell you my story. How I was raised as a Lutheran, Evangelical Lutheran Church of Canada, very much like the LCA, but not like it is now. How the ELCA has become very liberal. It was a very conservative denomination I grew up in. More specifically, the congregation I grew up in was even more conservative than the denomination itself. And I was raised in that church until, I was confirmed. You got to go through confirmation before you can take communion in a Lutheran church. And I did that for 2 years when I was, 12 and 13. And I had my first communion just before I was 14 years old. And of course, you learn about the doctrine of the Trinity. My very first lesson on the doctrine of the Trinity was from my mom in the church basement. I saw a picture on the wall, and I thought it was probably a picture of Jesus, but I thought, that might be a picture of God. And I asked my mom, who is that? That's Jesus, God's son. And she offered it like that. I said, well, where's the picture of God? And my mom responded, Jesus is God. And I went back to coloring. That was my first lesson. And then right after that, right after I was confirmed, we started attending Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, that denomination, which is a sister church to Assemblies of God, basically, in Canada. And, they're Trinitarians too. I've never been in a non-Trinitarian church in my entire life, at least not to my knowledge. And I've never had a reason not to believe in the Trinity, not to want to believe in the Trinity. And I went to Bible college, several years later. I just had an opportunity to do it. I thought I could get some questions answered there. I didn't get too many answers. But of course, it was a Trinitarian school, capital E evangelical type school. Pretty good Bible college, really excellent library, one of the better libraries in Canada as far as Bible colleges are concerned. throughout most of my life, I had attended, capital E evangelical churches. I'd moved around a lot, so, I was in different congregations, and I didn't always pick the same denomination. When I got into my 30s, I really began to, study the Bible a lot. And, I studied various doctrines, and one of the good things that helped me there was that I had many beliefs that I thought were slam dunk beliefs. Oh, yeah, come on, this is obvious. But when I studied it, when I studied the facts and laid them out, I realized, I thought, this was a slam dunk. And I began to realize it was just all the way that it was presented to me. It sounded really good the way it was presented to me. It sounded like it had to be right. But when I checked the facts, when I checked the scriptures, and when I thought about it, and I kind of had to reason some things out with various doctrines, I realized that a lot of my beliefs weren't slam dunks like I thought they were. And then this time came where, I was trying to work out something with the Trinity. I'd already studied the Bible for over a decade, probably about 15 years, pretty intensely. Like, I spent a lot of time in the Bible. And, I was trying to work something out. And it had a lot to do with John 1:1 and Colossians 1:16. And I was trying to, something wasn't adding up here. God created by his spoken word, but then there was this other word, a person. So there were really two. And I was trying to figure out how all this worked. And I read commentaries by others when I couldn't figure it out. I could see that they didn't know either. And people would resort to all kinds of mental gymnastics and explanations to try to explain this. And, so it started to bug me. And, this went on for a year or two. And, so finally I come to a point where I said, I'm going to check out this doctrine of the Trinity. And when I did that, I didn't think I was going to find this thing was false, this doctrine. I just thought, maybe there's a tweak or here or there. Maybe I'm just not seeing something right. So I started to check into it. I never had any ulterior motives. I just wanted to know the truth. I just wanted things to make sense. And, I've never been involved in any non-Trinitarian groups or anything like that influencing me. Just never happened. So I started to look, and one weekend I got a bunch of books together from the seminary, primary data with the Greek and all that. I'm not much for commentaries, because in commentaries, these guys, they kind of blab a lot. And I'm more for factual, raw data. Give me that. That's what I want. And so I collected up a bunch of books that would, kind of give me that kind of information. And I listed a bunch of verses, and I got the books that would help me out with those verses. And just on that very first time, I saw problems. The biggest problem I saw was with Hebrews chapter 1. I was reading this and I'm thinking, something's wrong here. This doesn't sound like the writer's trying to prove Jesus is God. This sounds like the exaltation of a man in this chapter. And so that led to more and more and more digging. And after, maybe about a year went by, at first I didn't tackle this, really heavy. But as time went on, I began to realize my problem was bigger and much bigger than I thought. And so, I dug into it more intensely. And after about a year went by, I was really into it, and I realized, there's something really, really wrong here. And right about then, or just a little after, I started to get mad because I realized I had been lied to. And all this evidence that I thought I had really wasn't evidence at all. I started to realize that I started to realize all the corruption that was going on in Trinitarian world with Trinitarian doctrine. You know, there was hypocrisy and contradictions and translation trickery and manuscript corruptions, and our interpretations, you know, we kind of had to rip them out of context or give them a twist, or we had to kind of disregard the facts that might be associated with our interpretations to make them work. And it started to make me angry because I realized I'd been lied to. That was when I was just getting into it. I know 10 times more about these lies than I did then. And at that time I thought, man, this lie is big. And it was 10 times bigger than I thought back then when I was thinking, how, you know, this lie is big. It was 10 times bigger than I thought then. It's huge. And, you know, one of the things that helped me there was, you know, I had previously looked at some of my other doctrines and thought they were slam dunks and realized, you know, I was wrong. And that kind of helped me out here because I thought maybe this one's wrong too. As a Trinitarian, you're basically conditioned in your mind not to touch this doctrine. Don't tinker with the Trinity. Bad, bad boy. And see, don't. And you're also conditioned to only look for reasons to justify it, even though a three-person God is never mentioned in the Bible, and God is the main character of the Bible and mentioned thousands of times. But this three-person God seems to be kind of unmentioned. A little strange. So I was only a year into looking into this, and I thought, man, this lie is huge. I created my website at that point in time. Just, you know, I was really just trying to keep track of information for myself at that time. And since then, you know, I've found 10 times more lies than I even knew then. And so if you were my friend and you were sitting around my kitchen table, I would be telling you this. And you might be getting mad at me. But I'd have to tell you because you're my friend, and I wouldn't be much of a friend if I didn't tell you about these lies. Because you're my friend, I don't want you walking down the road of lies. And I know you might get mad at me. I know you might not even want to talk to me anymore. I know that, but you're my friend, and I don't want you to believe a bunch of lies, like I used to believe. I want you to see what I saw. And so I would tell you this, and I would tell you, look, I can show you how most of these lies work, if not all of them. If you only look, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. And I would explain to you that, yeah, I understand completely how you think it's a slam dunk, and you have all this evidence. But you know what? That's the way lies work. If lies didn't look right, no one would ever tell them, would they? That's the point of lies. You tell lies, humans tell lies to make them sound like the truth. Because if they don't sound like the truth, nobody's ever going to believe them. So of course it looks right. And I would tell you that, you know, this big pile of evidence that you have for the Trinity was the same pile I had. And I thought I had all this evidence, and I thought it was a slam dunk. Come on. We've got all this evidence for the Trinity. And I would explain to you, when you're saying that, that's what I used to think too, until I looked. And I found that this big pile of evidence that I thought I had was nothing more than a big pile of lies. And I can show you how these lies work. The other thing I can show you, or I can help you with, is if the Trinity isn't true, if Jesus isn't God, what is the truth about God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit? Because I had to find that too. And I found out it's sublimely simple. It's far more wonderful than the beliefs you have when you believe in the Trinity. It's simple. The rest of the Bible starts to fall into place. Click, 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 click. And the other thing you'll do is you'll look back and realize how utterly confused and blind you were when you believed in the doctrine of the Trinity. If you were my friend sitting around a kitchen table, that's what I'd tell you. And I tell you that because that was my experience. I look back now and I realize, man, was I in the dark with these lies. And I understand why you think that it's so obvious that the Trinity is true and Jesus is God. It's got to be true. I understand that. But that's the problem with lies, isn't it? People believe lies like that because they've been duped into believing them. And whether you got mad or not, or angry or not at me, I'd tell you. But I'd also offer you, look, I can show you. I can show you. If you want. I'm not going to make you. I'm not going to try and make you. It's up to you. If you don't want to see, that's up to you. Totally up to you. But if you want to find out you've been lied to in a way that you won't even believe it when you find out. If you want to find that out, I'll help you see it. I can't believe how big the lie is. I can't believe how many lies are told in Trinitarian world. I can't even find a way to express it. It's like every turn there's a lie. Every claim that Trinitarians make, like 99.99% of these claims, are false. And they're demonstrably false. I would tell you that if you were my friend sitting around a kitchen table with me. Because you're my friend and I don't want you to believe a bunch of lies. That's pretty much why I made this YouTube channel. So that whoever you are, you can see too. It made me pretty angry when I found out I'd been lied to. And, I thought, other people got to know. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to put comments down there that are just so thick-headed and stiff-necked and stubborn and obtuse. I know that's going to happen. It's been happening ever since I've had this YouTube channel. But maybe you're not like that. Maybe you're someone that says to himself or herself, yeah, I do want to know the truth. No matter what it is, I want to know it. There's a lot of people out there that don't really care. I'm telling you. They don't really care. In fact, most people don't really care what the truth is. They only care what they want the truth to be. Whatever fancies their personal desires. So I would tell you this. I would explain to you, look, I get it, man. Why you think the Trinity is true. And why you think you got all this evidence. But I would tell you, what you don't get is what you don't see. I've been down that road. And I can show you how you've been lied to. I can help you see that. And I'm not going to tell you what to believe in the end. That's up to you. I just want to show you how you've been lied to. And I want to show you some other things that you probably don't know. And I probably wouldn't know either if I was still a Trinitarian. Because I wouldn't have went down this road to truth. That's what I would tell you. And I would also remind you about something. that if you're a true believer, like Paul says at Galatians 2:20, you've been crucified with Christ, you've died with the world, and so it's not really you who lives anymore, if you're a true believer and you're born again, but it's Christ who lives in you. And you walk in his footsteps in that way. Who was his God? Who is his God? The Father. In the Gospel of John, what does Jesus explain? He shows us the way to the Father. A triune God. Jesus is a way to the triune God. Nope. I know you think John 20:28 is a slam dunk. I thought so too. It's not. The Gospel of John actually tells you what that verse is about. Trinitarians only appeal to their doctrines. They have one eye on their doctrine every time they interpret a verse. Their context is Trinitarianism. That's a problem. And maybe that's why Jesus said, I ascend to my Father and your Father and my God and your God. Because his God is exactly the same as our God. And the only true God is Jesus Christ's God, the God of our Lord, Father alone. I would tell you, you know what? The truth is really pretty simple. Lies is a tangled web. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. And it's very complicated to explain a tangled web of lies. A big ball of knots. It's difficult to explain that. But the truth is sublime and simple. Jesus was called the Son of God for a reason. The person he's the son of is God. And it really is that simple. It really is. So, if you were my friend, and you were sitting around a kitchen table and we were studying the Bible and this subject came up, that's what I'd tell you. And I'd understand why you think you have a big pile of evidence, and I would explain to you, yeah, that's what I thought too. And I would explain to you how I found out it's nothing but a big pile of lies. And it damages our walk with Jesus Christ as well. Very significantly. It prevents us from seeing the victory we can have in Jesus. I would tell you that. If you were my friend, I'd get it. Why you'd have a hard time believing me. Because when I was a Trinitarian, if anybody would have told me this, I would have had a hard time believing what they were saying. I'd be like, come on, man. I'd get it. If you were my friend, I'd tell you that too. But if you look, you're going to find you've been lied to in a way that you won't even believe. And you'll find a truth. When you let go of that idol, you'll find a truth that will make you go, wow. Wow. That's what you'll find. Jesus taught us that we have to be prepared to leave things behind if we truly want to follow him. Christianity isn't about defending creeds. It's about finding the truth. Right? And following that truth. And that's what we got to do. If you were my friend sitting around the table, having a coffee with me, studying the Bible, I'd tell you things like this. I'd say, look, man, I can show you if you want. If you don't want to, it's up to you. But if you really want to see, I'll show you. God bless you.